2 years ago, in early 2015, I went on a trip with my dad that we had planned together. We planned to go on an airplane to Colorado and then drive to Las Vegas and then take a flight back to Florida. We were pretty excited to see snow, to see mountains. One of the first things that me and my father decided to do was go to a medical marijuana dispensary and try the gummies and try the weed there. My father was a very cool dad. He knew that it was my first time and he knew I was going to be around him, so he thought I would be okay, I would be safe. To be honest, I wasn't crazy about it. I wasn't like in love with when I did it. Like, I wasn't like, oh my god, this is amazing. I remember feeling like giggly, and I remember being really in tune in my head and like really deep in my thoughts. But the next day I never had the desire to smoke again. However, I remember waking up the next morning and thinking about why something so less harmful than prescription drugs and drinking alcohol is illegal everywhere else, and why it's so frowned upon in society. So even though I'm not a smoker and I never have been, I'm pro legalizing marijuana, and I don't think it's bad for you at all. I read into a news article from a man named George Byerson called Marijuana, the Deceptive Drug. It was published in a Massachusetts newspaper in 2000. In his article, he basically concludes that marijuana is harmful. It's been proven to cause all of these bad things like brain damage and damage to your reproductive system, and it weakens your immune system. He also further claims that it's a gateway drug and it will lead to harder things down the line. I believe that his research was based by his already assumed conclusion that he felt so strongly about. He wasn't willing to accept new information. He wasn't going to accept anything that shows that marijuana is beneficial. Based on my research from the claims he made, I found that several of the points that he tried to make were actually false, and they do not reach his conclusion he tried to make. One of Byerson's strongest claims was that it was physically harmful smoking marijuana. He argues that the test conducted on monkeys' brains seemed to show evidence of brain damage, but he doesn't mention that the tests were later discredited. And the animals were given high dosage, like 20 times the average amount of recreational or medical marijuana users. So 20 times the amount of someone that uses it on a day-to-day basis, these little animals were given, which to me is a poorly executed test. More current studies than the past show that people that are heavy marijuana smokers have no evidence of brain damage, and I found this to be more compelling than an outdated test. In fact, more tests show the opposite, that are more up to date, and that marijuana is actually healing and that it's easing pain with people that suffer from muscle spasms, seizures, multiple sclerosis, and it actually shows this helps stop cancer cells from spreading rapidly. These new studies that are coming up are endless with the positive effects of marijuana. One of the lasting arguments that people try to use against it is that it's a gateway drug to harder things. George Byerson states in the article that he made that marijuana is the seed from which the scourge of drug abuse grows. If we stop marijuana, we will stop the rest of drug abuse. I disagree with this. Statistics have appeared to point to the conclusion that marijuana is more likely a substitute for harder drugs rather than a launching pad. It's helped a lot of people in rehabs, and studies have shown actually opposite of what he said. Even though the properties of marijuana are not addictive physically, there's a psychological addiction that I looked into and I read about, but this is just about for anything that gives anyone pleasure, such as chocolate or gambling or shopping, which I have a problem with. But nothing in excessive amounts is safe for you. This goes for everything. So even like over-the-counter medications, it can be deadly if you overdose. So nothing in huge amounts is okay for you. So saying that medical marijuana in huge amounts not okay for you. It's just like saying anything, like a piece of cake is not okay for you in huge amounts. But a fun fact is marijuana overdose has never been a cause of death, has never been reported to be a cause of death. The amount of lethal effect for an overdose of marijuana has to be 40 times the amount of necessary dosage for 40,000 times the amount for necessary dosage for intoxication. So it's very highly unlikely that a person will be able to achieve such a concentrated amount in their bloodstream. Um, as in contrast to alcohol, you only need 4 times the amount to produce a lethal effect. So 4 times in contrast to 40,000 times, that's a huge difference. Marijuana is a huge controversial issue in society today because as years progress, it's a controversial issue, but I see as years progress that it's becoming a little bit more accepted. As people are putting it in voting ballots and states are wondering, should we legalize it? Should we keep it illegal? It can be very difficult to know which side to support. It seems that those vested interested in continued criminalization of marijuana will pull whatever strings necessary to sway public away to their side, even creating and supporting, invalid research or citing biased research to support their conclusion that they already made in their head, just as George Byerson did in his article. Thank you.